Mass incarceration means that we've got a very high rate of incarceration historically, comparatively, and the other thing is the rate of incarceration is so high, so socially concentrated, that we're no longer incarcerating the individual, but we're incarcerating whole social groups. The rate of incarceration now is about 5 times higher than it was historically. Historically it was 100 per 100,000, now it's about 500 per 100,000. If we look at prison, if we add jail to that, it's about 700 per 100,000. Nowhere in the world incarcerates as much as we do. We've seen extremely high rates of exposure to the criminal justice system for African American men with very low levels of schooling. So if we think about black men who were born in the late 1970s and who are growing up through the American prison boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, the chances that they're going to serve time in state or federal prison if they dropped out of high school is about 70%. So going to prison for that group of black men with very low levels of schooling, that's become a normal life event. And that's really only happened in the last 10 years. We're at this point now where there's about 1.2 million African American children with a parent who's incarcerated. That's about 1 in 9. The research shows that kids who experience parental incarceration have diminished school achievement, they have behavioural problems, depressive symptoms, acting out. And there's also evidence that these kinds of negative effects associated with parental incarceration are concentrated more among boys than among girls. And there's a very real risk here that incarceration becomes an inherited trait. The underlying issue is we've chosen prison as a way to respond to that problem of crime. And there are a whole variety of ways that we could have chosen to respond to that problem of crime. We've chosen the response of the deprivation of liberty. And we've chosen the response of the deprivation of liberty for a historically aggrieved group whose liberty in the United States was never firmly established to begin with.
One in 3 black men will spend time in prison at some point in their lives. 1 in every 13 black men ages 30 to 34 was in prison in 2011 versus 1 in 90 white men in the same age group. Why? For one, black people are 3 times as likely to be searched than whites during traffic stops and twice as likely to be arrested. And this starts young. Of the population under 18, African Americans make up 17% of the total, 30% of those arrested, and 62% of those tried in adult criminal courts. Being tried as adults leads to longer and more severe sentences. Another reason for the racial disparity of our criminal justice system, the war on drugs. Despite studies that show black and white people use and deal drugs at equal levels, black people make up 37% of the people arrested for drug offenses. Once they get out of prison, black people are 3 times more likely to be disenfranchised than white people. White men with recent criminal records are far more likely to receive callbacks for job interviews than black men with no criminal record at all. In this way, we already treat black people like felons. On top of that, black people are twice as likely as white people to be unemployed. This was true in 1954 and it's true now. This has led to one of America's most shameful facts. The median wealth of white families is 13 times more than black families. A contributing factor is that white people are almost twice as likely to own a home, one of the country's best paths to building wealth. The gap in home ownership between black and white people is the same now as it was in 1900. For those who are homeowners, black families live in neighborhoods where the median income is $10,000 lower than a similar income white family's neighborhood, which means local schools and public services are worse. This is a modern continuation of ghettoization, which started in the mid-20th century. Suburbanization and white flight began, in part, as a response to the disappearance of Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were a way to prevent black people from fully joining society after the abolition of slavery. Nowadays, we just toss 1 of every 3 black men in jail.